سلام میکنم به همه شما دوستان و عزیزان همراه پرژن آواردز جوایز فارسی. به همراه میهمان عزیز برنامه هستیم خانم جنت رایس. Thank you so much for watching us. We are with thank you so much for accepting our invitation, Ms. Rice. We are with Janet Rice. If you could please, you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself so all of the audience can know whom I'm speaking with.
Okay, hello, and it's great to be here with you today. Yes, so my name's Senator Janet Rice. I'm a senator in the Australian Parliament with the Australian Greens, and I've been in the Senate for 7 years. I live in Melbourne in Australia, but at the moment I'm in Canberra, which is where our federal parliament is. And I hold a range of different portfolio responsibilities for the Greens, in particular multiculturalism, which is very relevant to what we're discussing today. And I'm also the Greens Foreign Affairs spokesperson.
Great. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. My first question from you, Ms. Rice, is what is the importance of art and culture in the society?
Look, I think that's a very broad question, and it just goes to the very broad importance of arts and culture. I mean, arts and culture really is such a fundamental thing to hold a society together and for a society to understand itself. And in a country like Australia, which is so culturally diverse, building upon our First Nations cultural heritage of the oldest living culture in the world, with our Aboriginal people having been here and still here for over 60,000 years. And then in the last 230 years, people from all around the globe who now call Australia home. And so that expression of arts and culture to define who we are as a society and as a nation is incredibly important. It's a real bridge for people to be able to understand themselves and to understand each other.
Great. I really like the explanation of being a bridge. That's really impressive. Thank you. And what do you think, what is the role of as a politician that you can support art and culture, especially for immigrants?
Look, I mean, particularly for immigrants, a lot of people who arrive in Australia, they arrive here with next to nothing for a lot of people, and it's a real sort of struggle to just be having the resources to find somewhere to live, enough to eat, and to be established themselves in work. And so it's really important, if we are going to celebrate the sort of arts and culture of our migrant communities, for governments to be supporting them in doing that, and particularly to be supporting community organisations. Most of the migrant communities in Australia, because they've come here to Australia and they gather together, quite understandably, with people that speak their language, that they share their culture with. So there are really strong community groups and community organisations, and governments, I think, really need to have really good relationships with those community organisations and to resource them, to give them the resources that they need to be able to really celebrate and express their culture. So there's a really important role for government to play in order to both to be helping the communities express themselves and to feel connected with each other and with the broader society. And it's also really important as a country, if we're going to be a really peaceful and country that really accepts and celebrates that diversity, for people to be able to share their arts and culture from their community with each other and with the broader community.
Great. Thank you so much for your answer. And my next question is related to the first one as well, that what do you think, what is the primary role of culture and art to connected immigrants with the citizen of that country, that they are going to be the citizen for that country as well? So what is the role of it?
Look, I think, as I said in my first answer, I mean, it is that bridge. And I think particularly in a country like Australia, which has that, I mean, a really important part of our identity as Australians is that we are a multicultural community and that we've got that diversity. And so it's because it's part of our identity, actually realising that and achieving that means that we've got to have the opportunities for people to be able to express their arts and culture. And that means, supporting artists, supporting community groups, encouraging kids who are, often you've got sort of the first generation of migrants that might be happy to, they feel very connected to their home culture. And then you've got the second generation where you've got children who might feel, oh, no, that's not who I am, and they really are talking to their peers who aren't from their culture. Supporting those kids to understand that you can fit in as Australians and celebrate the culture from your family's home country as well. And in fact, that is what being an Australian is all about. And so it's really using arts and culture to help build that really healthy, diverse society where everybody is equal, everybody's accepted, no matter where they come from, their background, their religion, and that we're all not just respected but celebrated for that individual diversity that we bring. And obviously, the arts and culture, whether it's dance or music or art or food, is such an important part of that in order to be able to express who individuals and individual communities are. And it's such a richness that certainly for me as an Australian, I think it's a wonderful place to live because we've got that richness and that diversity from all over the world, and we can draw upon bits of it. And in fact, our society is built up of those cultures from all around the world. That for me in Australia, look, I'm wearing this top which has got Indigenous Australian artwork from it. I enjoy eating out at my local Vietnamese restaurants. I've got cushions here behind me that came from Laos. This is just the sort of the sort of multicultural
diversity,
richness of Australian society.
Yeah, and I like your earrings. Is it something from somewhere special?
Yes, in fact, they came from Ethiopia.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
It is beautiful.
I don't think I've got too much in my office here at the moment, sadly, that's from that's of Persian cultural background. I've got a book, actually. But
Good. What kind of book do you have?
Oh, it was a book that was given to me by the embassy, in fact, soon after I became a senator, called From Persia to Iran, which, yes, it's just basically lots of lovely photos of Iran.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that you have all of it and you're showing us how important it is. And that's the beauty of Australia. I can say that just respect all. And as you said, it's not only respect, it's celebrate. I really like this phrase that it's celebrating and it's a richness. That's really, really, really good for immigrants, for citizens to live there because they know that they have the support from you. That's great. So my next question is, in your opinion as a politician, how can immigrants grow up in the new countries as exactly their home countries? Because when they come to a new country, when they were in their country, they had a lot of opportunity to just celebrate or like contribution to any kind of art or culture, communities or activities. But when they come, it's going to be a little bit like harder. So what do you think as a politician that they need to do to grow?
I think a lot comes down to having the opportunities, just in terms of having time and space in their lives to be able to do it. I mean, as we discussed before, for so many migrants, they arrive in their new country and it's really hard. It's hard to find work. It's hard to feel that they fit in. And so much of their energy is just based on sort of doing the basics. And so as governments, I think it's really important to make life as easy as possible for those new migrants so that they can feel that they can blossom in their identity. And so as a Green, for example, we really feel it's very important to have a social welfare safety net so that everybody who is living here has got enough income to live on so that they're not living in poverty, they're not having to struggle to put food on the table, they're not, homeless or wondering where the money's going to come from to pay the rent. So actually providing people with that sort of adequate social safety net, that's a fundamental thing that then enables people to be able to express themselves and to be able to have the time in their lives to be having time to even just the meeting with their community groups, to be able to take their kids off to dancing classes or whatever, so that they're, and to have the resources to be able to do that. Because for so many people, if you're really struggling with the basics of life, you can't even afford the petrol to put in the car to take your kids off to a dancing class or a sporting event. And so, countries like Australia, we're a very wealthy country, but we are increasingly an unequal country, and that's what, as Greens, that we are tackling, to make sure that those who can afford to pay should be paying their fair share of tax, so that everybody in the country has got the basics, so that they can, be really flourishing.
Great. That was a really great, I can say, answer. And as I'm talking to you, it's a great opportunity for immigrants to listen and feel secure and insured. That's great.
And that, can I just add to that? That in itself also, it builds that sense of community and people having the ability to interact. People will, who have been here for a long time, say, oh, well, I don't trust, or I don't know that migrant group, and they feel that sense of difference. And if that migrant group hasn't been given the opportunity or the ability to actually be out and engaging in our society, well, that's what's going to happen. Whereas if you've actually got people who have got the resources to be able to participate, you break down those barriers and you really address sort of that division that can happen, where people see people who are different from them, and they're all, and they can be suspicious of them if they're not interacting with them.
Yeah, that's great. Another question is, in scientific and academic, there's a lot of immigrants that they are coming as a student to just continue their education. As a politician, what do you think that they need to do so they can just find a really good job exactly in their field that they are just continuously doing their education? And which situation do you think that the immigrants, they need to have, or they need to be, so they can grow in the scientific and academic part as well?
Clearly, supporting people, students when they arrive, is really important. And Australia has got students from all around the world, although not so much in the last 18 months with the lockdowns, the closing of our borders due to COVID. And so actually, again, ensuring that those students are well enough supported so that they can have the opportunities to really fully devote themselves to their studies is important. And we've had, particularly during the COVID lockdowns, our government has been very remiss, and you have had international students that haven't had government support, and they haven't been able to continue with their studies because they haven't had the resources to do so. And they've had families in their home country that are really struggling to survive. They might have been, relying on monies from those home countries that their families aren't able to then support them with. And they haven't been eligible for any of our social service payments. And so that's just not helpful at all. It's just totally the wrong way in terms of actually supporting students and other students in particular. So giving the students that support, making sure, all of our, education here is conducted in English, and so making sure that that students are given the opportunities to have really good English language training is really important. And again, that's more broadly too for our migrant communities. I think we need to be celebrating the diversity of language and encouraging people to be continuing to speak in their language, in their mother tongue, but to give people the opportunity to become proficient in English as well. And supporting them, individuals, to be able to do that is fundamental, because that then enables them to fully participate in Australian society.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, I think, is recognising that for whether it's professional people, scientists, students, that there's going to be people moving backwards and forwards. And I think that we're again. But we've had the situation with COVID, which has changed the things that with where the world's going, but I think we will eventually get back to, you know, having that sort of, that global movement and recognising that people are going to be moving backwards and forwards, that they are, yep, they might be here in Australian citizens, but they're dual citizens with their home country as well. And so a lot of movement backwards and forward. And I think that's really good. It's great for the world to be building those connections. And to be breaking down barriers. And that's, you know, if we want to be having a peaceful and prosperous world, actually allowing people to move backwards and forwards and to be sharing their knowledge backwards and forwards is incredibly important.
Great. Thank you. So in your opinion, as a politician person, how can the importance of cultural, artistic, and scientific awards in communities help more scientific and cultural and like artist activities? Some awards. Like Persian Awards.
The Persian Awards.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're part of just, you know, showcasing the strengths and showcasing the abilities and the culture of Persian culture around the world, and bringing it to audiences around the world. And actually, it's doing what I was just saying, of seeing ourselves as citizens of the world and seeing so that people can celebrate that and to see that as being relevant to their lives. And I think that building that diversity and building people's sense of that people who are of different culture aren't something to be afraid of. It's something to be celebrated and to be supported. Helps to build those more peaceful societies, because once you've connected with a community and a culture, you break down that sense of otherness and that sense of you're different to me, so I'm going to treat you differently. And that fundamentally is, you know, the racism that is experienced, which then leads to violence. It can lead to, you know, really disrespect for other people, gets broken down. I mean, for me, for example, I mean, where I live in Melbourne is in a very multicultural part of Melbourne. It was it's in the inner western suburbs. There's a place called Footscray. Particularly since the end of the Second World War, so wave after wave of migrants have settled there. So we had Southern European migrants in the 50s and 60s, and migrants from Turkey in particular. Then the Vietnamese refugees in the 70s. Then we had refugees from Northern Africa, and then in the last 20 years, yes, from Central Asia, from India, and so we've just got this most amazing diversity. And what that means is that people in my hometown, they aren't racist, because they know that, you know, the person from all of these different cultures, they're the person that lives next door, and they know they can respect them as a human being rather than seeing them as somebody of a separate culture. And so I think if more people lived in multicultural societies and really just interacting with people, we would be a much more peaceful and harmonious society, and it would really, you know, definitely help to break down those barriers that can lead to violence and to war.
That's great. So my next question is about the people who are active in the like organization like Persian Awards. What is your opinion about us, that we are active, we are volunteer working? Do you think that we are the feedback of the culture, especially I'm talking about Persian Awards, in the society? What is your opinion about us?
Oh, look, I think it's fantastic, the work that you are doing, because it really is helping to sort of build that, spreading experience and allowing people to appreciate the richness of Persian culture all around the world. And the fact that most of it's done on a volunteer basis, I think, you know, good on you, because it really is building, you know, it's a gift that you're giving to the world of being able to allow people to experience the richness and the beauty of Persian culture.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's important for us to know that what is your opinion as a politician. One of the best way to empower an art or culture, especially for immigrants that they are coming from other country, is just connecting two communities, three communities, or all of these communities together. What is your opinion? What steps should be done to have this connection between communities, especially like Persian communities with other communities, as you said, like Turkish, Vietnamese, every communities? What is the steps that should have been done?
And I think there's, it goes back to a lot of the things we've been talking about, of people having the opportunities to be able to have some space in their lives, to be able to reach out. That if people are having to work in really low paid jobs for 16 hours a day, they're not going to have the opportunity. Basically you get home and you sleep, and then you've got to go off to work. And so providing sort of the basic, allowing people to, making sure that people have got work, that it's well paid work, that they're not being exploited, to then create the framework and the groundwork to then enable people to reach out. And then it's providing the infrastructure, and that might be, community centres, for example. A lot in Australia, a lot of that sort of social infrastructure is provided by local governments. And again, local governments here are really under-resourced. A lot of their funding comes from the federal government, and that funding has been cut back over the years. So actually supporting local governments, who are the level of government closest to the people, to be able to, properly resource their community centres, so that there are meeting spaces that community organisations can access at really, good, affordable rates. And then providing, community development workers to be actually reaching out to communities and just keeping them in touch with each other. Things like, again, my hometown of Footscray, we've got a wonderful community arts centre that celebrates the multicultural nature of our community, and that takes resources to be able to be running that. So supporting that basic infrastructure that then will provide the places. It provides the infrastructure for people to be able to come together to experience, arts and culture from other countries, and to be able to practice it as well, to be able to have a space that, people can come together, whether it's to, be doing their dance rehearsal, or to be producing their art, or whatever else. And because you've got all of these different cultures that are coming, they then will run into each other and be able to connect with each other. Yeah. And so, again, my experience of home is that you've got, it's the only place in the world where you've got, Northern African communities side by side with Vietnamese communities. And that creates some, wonderful creativity and diversity, all of its very own.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So what do you think, what is the role of local media in empower art and culture in different communities, but especially I'm talking about Persian communities? Like every immigrant, when they are coming, there is a role for media, like especially local media. What do you think as a politician person?
Oh, I think it's really important, and I think we should be using, and we are using the communications technology we've now got, of everybody being able to set themselves up as a broadcast, even if it's just sort of a fairly narrow broadcast into a particular community. But it really gives great opportunities for people to be connected in a way that we didn't used to have, so that it's not just being able to physically come together in a space, which is still important, but then be able to broadcast that out into particular communities. And that's the sort of support that is I certainly think is fundamental to a thriving society, to be able to support that local media. And when I'm talking local too, I think in particular countries, to make sure that it might not just be in a particular community group, but, say in Australia, of supporting Australian local content, rather than having most of our broadcast media being imported from the United States, which is not reflective of our culture. And so sort of government support and philanthropic support for locally made content here is really important, to be really reflecting the reality of our society, and sharing Australian stories, where those Australian stories are reflecting the multicultural diversity of Australia.
That's amazing. So you believe that local media has a really, really important role, especially to show the world the reflection of the society that is locally in that environment. My last question from you is, what should be done to encourage production companies to produce more cultural artist products that is going to just empower art and culture, especially for immigrants?
So
I'm so sorry.
Yes, we were doing so well.
I'm so sorry. I was like, what happened? Okay, I'm going to just record it again. And so the last question.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think that is the steps that should be done for the companies, like production companies, to produce more products that is related to cultural art that especially for immigrants, so they can have producing more products about the culture and art?
Yeah, well, look, I think that there's no lack of people that would be willing to be involved in producing sort of local culture and and showing off the diversity of their society. People want to do it, so it's giving them the opportunities to do it. I think having regulations in our mainstream media to require an amount of local content to be shown is really important, so that there are then outlets that, so it's not just US imported stuff on our broadcast media, so that there are opportunities, but then providing through grants and other opportunities the opportunity for people to be resourced, to be able to be producing local content and sharing it in their communities. And I think it's actually a relatively small amount of money that's required would go such a long way in really encouraging and supporting the celebration of culture and sharing that with communities as well. It's a massively valuable investment in building a sort of peaceful and harmonious and rich and diverse society.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Rice. It was really honored to talking to you. Thanks for accepting our invitation. Is there anything else that you have as an advice or suggestion for Persian Awards audience that they are watching you and listening to you?
Look, I think just to keep up the good work and to really feel proud of your culture and to really, take the opportunities to be sharing your culture with people all around the world, because it is, really important. It's important to be building that sort of peaceful, harmonious, and rich culture, both locally and globally.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rice. It was really honored to talking to you. Thank you.
Okay, love you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of the audience that were watching us. It was really a really good interview with Ms. Rice from Melbourne. I know that she said that she's not in Melbourne now, but it was really good to talking to her. خیلی ممنون از اینکه با ما همراه بودین. به اتفاق مهمان عزیزمون از همه شما خداحافظی میکنم. تا دیدار دیگه، لبخند از رو لباتون دور نشه. Thank you so much, Ms. Rice. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.